I wanted to open up this little diner in my old hometown in my mother's memory because she taught me so much. But what I did not expect is once I got this business booming, I'm talking about the money was rolling in. But then my family says, hey, we don't really need you that much, and we get into an argument, and I basically get kicked out of the family business. Well, I say, okay, you don't want me here, fine, I'll leave. I decide to go to a bigger city. I actually fall in love and find someone I want to spend the rest of my life with. Long story short, I start another business, but this one explodes like fireworks, and I'm talking I am mega rich. Well, I now have the chance to go back to my old hometown and basically rub it in my family's face, but that's when I discovered something. Oh, they were not doing very good without me. In fact, they were about to go bankrupt. I'm 35 and female and was an operations manager for a successful hotel chain. Well, I was earning quite a living, I will say. I come from a very rural town of Ashley, Wyoming. The town's major workers and income have been from the Interstate 90, aka I-90, transcontinental motorway, which has a large number of truckers stopping to and from Seattle. So the town grew in the early 1920s to cater to those needs, and my own brothers, John and Sam, run a garage where they tend to do these massive beasts of a vehicle. My mother passed away while I was still in high school, and it left me feeling very lonely, so I decided I would move out and study hospitality management in Orlando. I just wanted to move away from everything that would remotely remind me of her. Right after college, I got into the luxury hotel in Orlando as an intern, and I worked my way up. I loved my job and had forgotten about the state of my home completely. I went for 6 months once to stay with my family for a week, and my father was very happy to see me. My brothers, not so much. I did not understand the reason for their cold behavior towards me. I guessed it was because I had managed to move out and have a secure life away from the boring town where we were born in. During my last visit 3 years ago, my father fell severely ill and I did not feel like leaving him after a week. I first asked them if I could get a month off to take care of him, but they denied it. My father also requested that I stay with him till the end of his days. So, on a whim, I quit my job. At the start, I did not feel that bad about it. I was just annoyed that my brothers and their wives barely helped in taking care of him. Father was released a month later from the hospital. And when he came home, he had a tumor in his pancreas. Well, they had operated on it, but were very weary that it would come back again. So we needed someone to take care of him at all times, even though he was capable of performing everyday activities like brushing and bathing. I stayed at our childhood home with them, and my brothers had moved out right after their marriage, so the house felt like a dusty memory of warmth. My father did not have the energy or need to keep it clean like my mother. He also never looked for anyone else who could fill that place in his life, and he loved her very much and kept the house in her memory. Well, he took a very strong medication and would sleep or watch TV most of the day. Though I was happy to occasionally get him some water or prepare food for us, it was mostly just boring for me. I had my mother's energy and could not sit idle along with my brothers, so the first couple of weeks after we came back, I cleaned up the house, organized it in a way that Mom would be proud of. I still miss her, but the twinge of pain from an old photo or memory had become bearable. This, too, was not satisfying enough for me, so when my brothers came over for Thanksgiving, I pitched them an idea and I say, "Hey, John, how's the turkey?"
"Aw, it's beautiful, A+. I never thought a nerd like you could cook such a mean piece of meat, wow."
"Well, John, Sam, how do you think your driver pals might like such cooking when they're on the road?"
"Oh, well, I'll tell you right now, they would love it. They always miss hot home grease like this. Why do you ask?"
Sam looked puzzled, and I took a deep breath and told them the idea. We had a garage in the middle of town, and there was enough traffic anyway, so a food truck would die in a situation like that. Since they had a long way to go before they reached another town where they could just get a good bite to eat and service. Well, they loved the idea, told me that they would immediately look to find a vehicle where I could make this happen. I gave them some money I had saved to buy a nice truck, and just like that, 3 weeks later, Daph's Burger and Fries was opened in the parking lot. Daphne was our mother's name, and there was no question we would name it after her. Our father was very excited as well. He felt guilty for keeping me away from my job for so long and saw me as very jittery around the house. So he was happy I was channeling it into a productive way, and the business was a tremendous success. There were large queues outside to the point where I had to hire a couple of wives from the town to help me out. My brother's wives also joined me in this venture after a week, and we did not really need to worry too much about buying costly groceries and meat since the truckers would get us some for exchange of goods. Good faith. We split the profits equally amongst the three of us, although I felt I should have gotten more, since most of the cooking was mine, and truckers who stopped at our truck also had their vehicles looked after, so I felt like my brothers were doubling their income. But slowly we realized that the truck would not be enough. There was barely enough space for the two of us in there with all the food, and Sam and John started building the garage restaurant where the truckers could park, walk across, sit, and have a hearty meal. I designed the whole space, and they got to work with around 15 people. It took us nearly 7 months of intense working around the customers to finally get it finished, so we opened up Daph's. Probably the first restaurant in the garage. We attracted a lot of folks, and it became like a zoo environment for small children obsessed with vehicles. Wow, they could munch on their fries and look at a Volvo truck getting lifted to fix a flat tire, and the business was a-boomin'. And for what felt like forever, I was going to bed with happy exhaustion and waking up with a warm confidence. This all came crashing down when our father, he passed away. He had been suffering for a while, and we even hired a nurse after the initial food truck started doing well. The funeral was surprisingly big. My father had worked at Teamster in his younger years as a lawyer for them. They had massive respect for a man who worked for the working class like them, so they all showed up. Even many of our business regulars whom we had become friends with attended the funeral. I once felt happy that he passed away at ease. My mother did not know how my brother and I would end up. She died, a worried woman. My father, on the other hand, saw his children work hard and lead a successful life. He was at peace, and I wish for a similar death. We shut up shop for a week while we mourned and discussed our future. A month later at work, I saw my colleague from SB Hotels pull up to our restaurant. His name is Diego, and he's around my age. We caught each other up on our lives, and he even complained about how I quit the hotel business to run one more of my own. And I quote, "I would have invested. I'm a huge Anna Magic believer." That's what he said, and I made up a fan gesture whenever I would pull off something unbelievable, like when I was able to convince a client to, negotiate with the management successfully. The gesture was basically blowing an air kiss and saying, "Ooh, N magic." It stuck on for some reason, and I liked Diego. We were both older and unmarried, and he had more of a dating life than me, but we never wanted to mix personal and professional lives. The flirting was always subtle but respectful. But since I'm no longer employed at the same place, I felt like he was there to take a chance. Our talk was cut short by a call for help from Catherine inside. But I gave him my number and, told him to call me anytime. I left feeling at ease with the world once more, and the ease would last only a couple of days, though. I felt sick. The doctor said it was because I was overly stressed, and the autumn season brings my allergies back, This forced me to stay at home while Catherine and Emily continued to work. We had also rebranded the name of the restaurant to Daph and George's, adding our father's name to it. After I went back to work, I noticed everyone started behaving coldly towards me. I just guessed at first that it was because they did not want to be, quote, bossed around, as John called it. After working at successful hotels, I realized there's a certain standard of discipline and hygiene required to run a business successfully for a long time. I wanted that standard in the kitchen, and outside they interacted with customers. Emily thought it was too much at first, but since the whole thing was my idea, they shut up quickly. But it did not go away. Everyone straight up started ignoring me and telling me nothing instead of reporting it all to Emily and Catherine. I was too stunned to realize what happened. I went straight to them and picked a fight. They yelled. Well, and yes, the yelling and sure brought John and Sam from the other side, who broke us up. I was told that I had no place there anymore since I did not technically own the plot or the restaurant. Well, I was shocked. I stormed away and contacted my lawyer, who, after a bit of digging, showed me the papers for the restaurant. John and Sam had registered as co-partners and I as an employee. I had signed a document authorizing this during the construction, and I remember they asked me to do it when I was in a hurry and I trusted them. I told him I wanted to sue them for everything, but he told me that it would not stand up in court. I had signed, and it was all over from that moment. Well, I was absolutely infuriated, and in the evening, I went to John's house and started a fight. He told me I was lucky to even get that much money from it in the first place, and if I wanted to work, I had to return as an employee. I returned home and sat crying all night. I got a call in the morning from Diego, who recognized that I was in delirium, and drove all the way from Chicago to console me. I told him everything. He knew how much starting a business of my own meant to me, and we had discussed it a lot when we worked together. Consoling turned a little steamy, though.
Well, I didn't care. I liked him anyways, and I knew he liked me.
He stayed with me that day, and we both drove back to Chicago, and I packed up my bag completely and left my parents' house.
I felt like I was running again.
But this time I felt like I had nothing left in Ashlet to run from. I stayed at Diego's place for a couple days while my mind drifted to, well, revenge. I wanted to show them that all the success they're enjoying was mine, and they did not do crap to deserve it. Diego, seeing my down jokingly, just proposed that I join the old hotels again and work in their motel department.
Well, that's actually a brilliant idea. Thank you so much, Diego,
I said, rushing to draft an email. I wrote to the management about a pitch I had, and I would love a meeting soon. Diego also pushed from his side, so I got to the meeting in about a week. There I present the idea of partnering up with a cross-continental transport company and motels to start a highway chain of restaurants across the busiest highway lines. I had enough time to analyze why they would deny this without some proper investors involved. So I called up a few investors, and I had become very close friends with them while I ran the hotel in Orlando as the operations manager. They trusted me enough to come along. All I needed was one chance, and I would prove them right. Update number 1. After a month of back-and-forth proposals and discussions, we agreed on a deal. The first phase of the project would be along I-45. There would be 5 stops, and the truckers would get free meals and stay 24/7. They would need a subscription that would be taken from their salary at the end of each month for this, and there was a big reveal at the union meeting today, where we convinced nearly 2,000 truckers to join us. We also promised that other highways would get this service soon. I was installed as project head manager and managed the logistics of the entire operation. This was more distant from the clients that I would have liked, but hey, I had a point to prove. A year into the project, we're hyper-successful. We've expanded the number of locations and highways we offer to the service, and the next step would be an installation of, quote, Anna's drive-thru and kitchen at these places. The motels already had some form of food nearby, so we had to carefully buy or lease their premises to start these. The name was suggested by Diego, who is now head of their financial aspect of the project.
We also started officially dating, and it's been an absolute blast. We both know and understand as adults where to draw a line, so there have been almost minimal mix-ups and fights. I taste tested and fixed the menu too. With that out the way, now all I needed was an expansion on I-90, and I would show my family that all the success I gave them would be mine again. The management and board were very happy with the ongoing deals and mergers of motels and restaurants into our fold, so they stopped breathing down my neck about every small decision I made. Update number 2. I got a call the other day from a trucker who I knew from Ashlet. He told me about all the drama that happened after I left, and John saw the same opportunity I did and contracted the motel near the highway, asking if they would be willing to join forces. It turns out the motel had very bad credit and was a financial trap of loans and unpaid bills. The man who sold it to them left the whole thing in absolute shambles, and they had to invest a lot of their own money to fix and repair it up to a usable state. This also caused a rift between John and Sam, the latter of whom did not want any part of the motel but got forced into it basically. So the fights were very public and so embarrassing. The wives tried their best to keep the peace, but, well, were completely unsuccessful. The food's rotten too. It's not bad, but it doesn't have the bite the way it used to when you were around. That's what he told me. I felt sad. I could not understand why. This whole idea of trying to teach them a lesson was going well, but they had already screwed it up. I tried to empathize with and understand their side and perspective. None of them had any experience working in the industry, so I called them to patch it up. John picked up the phone and spoke to me sheepishly. I told him I had no animosity for him or anyone else there for any more matter. I had found another peaceful place that I could call home, and I was happy. I told him I would be glad to help in any way I could, but a conflict of interest would not allow me to. He said he understood and told me to stop by if I was ever around town again. I told him I would and went back to work, but I could not concentrate. I had an interview with the magazine where I talked about my reasons and dreams for the project. It felt shallow and unsatisfactory to tell everyone that all of this started because I wanted revenge. I felt quite hollow, so I went back home and called Diego and told him about my worries. He comforted me first by joking about how he loves that his new job pays way more, and that he loves his boss, me, for once. But after he saw that I was not responding to it well enough, he told me to go and sit down with my family, to have a conversation that would clear everything up. The company could even buy the restaurant from them if they were looking to quit the business altogether. This felt like the optimal solution, and I needed to talk to them and figure it out first, and see if there would be any place for me in their lives, or vice versa. So, I'm going to drive to Ashlet next weekend with Diego. If things work out great, we're going to camp outside Wyoming, and spend a couple days away from all this stress. Update number 3. Yesterday, we came back from our weekend road trip to Ashley. I was a little worried driving there that this might all be for nothing. All of us are very short-tempered in my family, and this was a landmine I would be stepping on. I'd verbally abused my siblings, their wives, both publicly and privately, and they had thrown me out of the business and made me the laughingstock of the town and the customers that we had. So maybe leaving a wound like this alone might have been the right solution, but I was already halfway there, so I just willed myself to at least say hi. Diego was with me as well, and I wanted to introduce them to my second boyfriend ever. I was an absolute workaholic all my life, and they wanted me to settle down, especially my father wanted it, so I was hoping to show Diego the environment I grew up in. We stayed at my parents' house, since I still had a key. Both John and Sam had not done anything to it yet. I was afraid they would try to sell it to cover the cost of maintaining the restaurant, and the whole house was dusty. But I had no energy after driving for 7 hours to do anything about it. We reached there Friday night, and on Saturday we went to John's place. I called them on Friday to let them know I would be in town, so they would be expecting me. I saw Sam's pickup truck as I pulled up to the house. Emily opened up the door and was genuinely happy to see me. She had grown thinner, and bags under her eyes suggested she had been crying recently. The house felt a bit somber, though the hugs and exclamations were loud. We sat down and started talking about our lives and how it's been almost 3 years since Dad passed away. We were circling around the topic, but nobody wanted to approach it. Finally, feeling sick, Sam just said, "So, Anna, we're thinking of closing down the restaurant and selling both the garage and Dad's place. We just wanted to know how much of it you would want." I slowly absorbed every bit of information in that sentence, and I wanted to scream, "Karma!" But I held back. But I did not feel like I would be okay with losing everything we had built as a family in this town. So I asked them what they would do with the money. John said he and his family would be moving to Boston, where he had a friend whose showroom needed a mechanic. So he would be working there and was hoping to get a reasonably sized house for his wife and 3 kids. Sam would be moving to Seattle to find work as a trucker himself and was hoping to provide a nice home for his wife and kids. This was stupid. We would all be split apart just like that, and no more Johnsons and Ashlet. Our parents' graves would be left alone for nature to rub the names away. I asked them how much money they would need to clear the loans and continue the business, and they told me the numbers, and it was huge. A big old chunk of my savings. I'd basically have nothing in my account saved for the future, but hey, I had a stable job and would be earning way more than both of them combined. I wanted them to remain here and build this. So I agreed to give them the money on the condition that they continue to work and build the restaurant back to its glory. Well, they were absolutely shocked. They figured I was joking, but they saw that I was actually serious. They asked for a bit of time. Their wives wanted time more than anyone else because they were managing the more hectic parts of cooking, cleaning, and, maintaining financial records for all 3 businesses. I have an opportunity just to make things right for everyone, and I hope they will do the right thing by themselves and me. Diego got along fine with them, and they were proud that I had finally decided to open up to love and think about settling down. I told them we were still dating and they would have to wait years before they saw me in a white dress. They laughed, and we concluded the entire thing on a positive note. Update number 4. 5 days ago, I get a call from Sam telling me the restaurant had burned down. There was a gas leak in the kitchen that spread very quickly and caught a fire, consuming everything. So they would have to shut down the whole thing, and all the money I gave them and the efforts they put into it were absolutely lost. I was devastated. I told them to sell everything off and leave that cursed town for good. Maybe their futures were elsewhere. I just forced them and wasted everyone's time and money. I could not work properly that day, and Diego saw that I was so distracted. I told him everything, and we just went home quietly. A couple days ago, I get a call that my dad's house had been sold and they would just be demolishing the whole place soon. So we drove there to collect the last remainings of our parents' things, but something did not sit right with me. I don't know. I felt nauseous that I would never be driving along these roads thinking of home again. We reached there in the afternoon, and I sorted things out through the house, taking all the things I wanted and packing them neatly into boxes and cartons. That night, we ran into a trucker after our dinner at John's place, and he told us he would miss us in Ashlet and how the fire had been so enormous. He said Sam had joked about setting the whole place on fire a couple times in the last few years, though it started off as a joke. He saw Sam and John almost considering it a good option to claim insurance and save themselves from the burden of loans. There would be an investigation, of course, but gas leaks in kitchens next to hazardous garage materials, there wouldn't be much to investigate. I was furious. I almost slapped the driver myself for the dangerous accusations he was placing on my family. But he did not back down. So I drove back to John's place at almost midnight to confront him, and he first calmed me down and told me all that was a lie. They would not do it ever in a million years, burn down a place where their entire family worked hard and earned their livelihood. They joked about it because it always seemed like the easy way out. He told me they would have done that before asking me for money since it would have been so easy. But they weren't going to. Then he showed me the whole debris investigation report and how much would be covered by insurance, and he also told me I would get a chunk of the money for helping them out in such a dire situation. They were going to file bankruptcy and sell the land. I felt like a fool. I wanted all this to be a lie so bad that I would have trusted a random trucker more than my own brothers. But they had cheated me before, but they could never cheat our parents. Right? Their hard-earned money and effort went into those two properties, and this town has been a curse and a blessing. It's taught me so many lessons by just existing. For that, I am glad, and I will always remember Ashlet.
So guys, there was actually a little theory that was going on in the comment section, and it was piquing my interest. We learned at the end of the story how OP's family claimed that the restaurant burned down, and now they're going to get the insurance money, but a lot of people were saying, oh man, that's definitely coincidental that it decides to burn down right now, right after OP gave a large chunk of her savings to her brothers to take care of it. And then one of the truckers mentioned how one of the brothers were talking about burning down the business. I mean, that's a red flag. Even though there was paper evidence to kind of hide that it was an accident, I want to know from you guys, what do you think of this theory? Did OP's brother actually burn it down so he can keep all the money OP gave him and he can collect some insurance money? Let me know your thoughts about this one. Drop it in the comment section. Thank you so much for joining me, guys. If you're new to the channel, my name's Mr. Reddito. I do a story every single day. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Smash that subscribe button. I'll see you in the next one. And remember, it's cool to be kind. See ya.